Welcome back to Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times of ours. And in today's episode, we're talking about High Noon High School, HNHS, another acronym for you to remember. This is something in the works. It's early stage, but we are developing something specifically for high schoolers. And the person who is at the forefront of this is Seiji. And Seiji's on our podcast today to talk about high school, how his experience of high school was, why he's working on High Noon High School, and what he hopes to do with all of you. So if you're a parent of a high schooler, by golly gosh, listen to this. If you are a high schooler, listen to this. If you care about high schoolers and you're not in high school, listen to this, because we all have to pool our resources together, our mental resources, emotional resources, in order to make it possible to help high schoolers who are super vulnerable in this day and age. They're faced with so many challenges and very little support for day-to-day challenges, right? And so we want to create a High Noon world for them specifically, but we can't do that without your feedback and without your support. So please, let's get into High Noon High School. All right, everybody. I'm here with a legend in the making, somebody who's pioneering. Like, High Noon is all about pioneering, new turf, new terrain. We just went on a world tour talking about sex. How do you think? Well, I never thought my life would amount to that, but that's what it is, and it's far greater and stranger than I could ever imagine. Leads me to places and to people that I would never normally meet, and that's a good thing, because sex is where we all come from. And it's how we're going to pass on future generations. And if we don't talk about it, then what are we talking about here? But there's been one demographic, honestly, that's been really difficult for us to break through with. And that's the demographic that's also struggling their brains out. And that's high schoolers. But we got the man for the job. We got Seiji over here. So first of all, welcome back, Seiji. You've been on the podcast before, right?
Hello. Yes, I've been on before.
You're like... So this is your sophomore appearance, or your...
No,
which one?
Junior year. This is my third.
Oh, wow. Look at you.
Yeah.
So next week he'll be hosting. He'll just be taking over. And so you've been around in terms of, like, you started out as a participant of Ascend, and then you were a facilitator, right? And then you were an intern for a hot minute.
Yeah.
When did you first join a program?
First joined in the summer of 2019. After my first year GPA.
Okay, so you were fresh out of high school yourself.
Yeah, I'd say so. Pretty fresh.
Nice.
Yeah.
And then how long did it take for you to become a facilitator? How long were you in the program for?
I took like breaks on and off because I joined my second year of High Noon. My second year of GPA, excuse me. And I took a year break, I guess, from High Noon, just because there's no time as a GPA captain. But then I joined CARP after I graduated GPA, and I started High Noon up again. I would say, 5 or 6 maybe programs I was a participant in, and afterwards I started being a facilitator.
Yeah, and then Uncle Dave snatched you up and said, hey, let's make him an intern. And then he's like, hey, Andrew, figure out what an intern is. And then we figured that out. Uncle Dave just wanted you in our world. He's like, that guy. He's really good at headhunting.
So that's how it happened.
Yeah, it's actually Good to Great is our kind of like operational Bible. And it says, find the people and then figure out what they need to do. That'll come with time. The right people will help you build the right thing eventually. You'll find the right work for them. So he just wanted you nearby. So that was largely like you gave talks at a GPA and then at a camp, right? Something like that?
Yeah. I was giving camps at our local Kogape, shout out Kogape in the Midwest. Yeah, it was a great experience. I was, guest speaker for a couple camps, and it was great.
And then something happened recently, I don't know, around April-ish, something like, you started dating somebody or something. What was that?
Oh, I forget
the details.
It's called a blessing, bro. I got blessed this April. Yeah. So exciting. Now I'm in Japan with my wife.
If he looks any different, it's because he fell face first in love with actually somebody who works for our Japanese chapter, Yoshie. Right? You and Yoshie are a power high noon couple. So Seiji, you are in Japan. How long you been in Japan?
About 2 months.
So you got it nailed down. You're perfect at language. They can't even tell that you're not fully Japanese, right?
Yeah, I got cashiers talking to me in Japanese first thing. They don't try their English first.
And then you're gonna be there for a while, yeah? You're like you're getting your samurai
that's the
suit.
plan. We're getting our visa. I'm training every day.
Sweet. So guys and gals, listen to this. High school is when you are physically, in many cases, already an adult. But emotionally and spiritually, you're a teenager still, right? You're a teenager, which means that there's a lot of growing. Like you are not a kid anymore, but you're still not an adult just yet. It's this weird phase of life that only humans really go through. Like most animals go from like a little baby to, okay, now you're off on your own, go hunt by yourself. But especially in modern humanity, like my grandma, she had to get a job when she was like 11 because that's just the world that she was in. It's like you better be working. What are you climbing a tree? You better get yourself a job, right, at 11. But now like humans develop a lot later. Yeah, because we're given the space to kind of make mistakes and, all this stuff. But in terms of sexual integrity, it's like the hardest time, I would say, for a lot of people's lives because they are left to their own devices. They're swimming in a very dysfunctional culture at school, online, and their parents typically aren't talking to them about sex. So it's been a demographic that we know is drowning, but we don't know how to speak their language, right? And so enter Seiji into the picture, where we asked them to try to tackle this. Like, how do we create something for high schoolers? How do we speak their language? How do we give them something that actually helps them in their day-to-day life, especially with sexual integrity? So when you were contacted about this, Seiji, what were you intimidated by the prospect of helping high schoolers, or is that like, are those your people?
So doing the workshops in the past, I feel like it was a really good, like, kind of getting my foot into the door, understanding what high schoolers need, what high schoolers want. Looking back at my own experience and how important it was to go to camps and to have older brothers and sisters, be connected to them. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy being an older brother. I am myself in my family, I'm the youngest, and I'm the youngest by a long shot, by 10 years. And, I've always looked up to my older brothers and sisters. I always looked up to my own brothers and to the community brothers and sisters who made the camps, who staffed and organized and all that. And it's always someone I wanted to be. I had those role models in my life, and so to be that kind of role model is almost like my dream. I want to be a really good older brother.
Yeah, and it's what a lot of people need, right? So, and to be honest, it was so nice to have you starting to speak at camps, because when I started High Noon, I was already in like my early to mid 30s, right? Which means that, like, from my perspective, it just got creepier and creepier, me being at a middle school or high school workshop, because it's like, I feel like I speak their language less and less, and like, I'm like, hey kids, how's it going kind of vibe. And as much as I have a youthful spirit, I'm not a teenager by far. It's been 25 years since I've been in high school. That's how old I am, right? I'm way older than the high schoolers in my age of post high school. Like, that's how old I am. So it was really nice to have you. And I feel like, I heard really good things about just how people connected with your talks. And so it's great that you value that relationship of wanting to reach out to high schoolers, because honestly speaking, a lot of parents really, I know, want to connect with their kids in high school, but they just don't know how. It's like their kids become aliens because they're figuring it out, right? And parents are intimidated by the prospect, right? So it's cool to have you in there. Yeah, you want to say something?
Oh, it reminds me of the time my dad took me out for the talk.
Oh.
And it was just, it was so funny and awkward and short.
Was it at an ice cream shop?
Oh, we did go out for ice cream afterwards, yeah.
What?
But we went.
Oh my God.
we went fishing, and I remember it was a very underwhelming experience. I think the fish I caught was like this big, smaller than my fist, and it's like, oh, this is kind of slimy, and and then we threw it back in the water. And then we went to get food at a restaurant. And then I can't even remember what my dad said, but I just remember he was like playing with his glasses or a pen or something. He was playing it with it in his hands, and it's like, so Seiji, what do you know about sex? I was like, oh, I think I was like 15 at the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh man, it was. It's a shared experience. I feel like when I tell that story, so many people are pretty relate to that experience, to that awkwardness in that conversation.
It's funny because you don't even remember what you heard. You just remember the feeling, which is like indicative to what we're trying to do with School of Love. Is parents think they need to be an expert in talking about sex before they talk to their own kids about sex that they produced through sex. And we're trying to emphasize the fact that no, it's creating rapport. It's like how you make them feel regarding the issue of sex. If you make it an enjoyable experience, then that starts to be infused with their relationship with the topic of sex. It's like, oh, this is normal, it's natural, it's healthy, instead of like, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to think about it, it just makes me feel weird, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also want to understand what the deal is between ice cream and fathers talking to their kids about sex, because this is like, that's the most common thread, is there's those two things, the awkward feelings and ice cream. And I think that maybe if there were no ice cream shops in the world, then nobody would know about sex. We would just be making it up. So that was your experience, and then that was the only talk that you got from you?
Not until high noon. Not until
after
my GPA experience, and then going through high noon program, and then kind of getting the courage to talk about my porn addiction and everything that happened with sexual integrity with my parents and growing up.
I see. Yeah, we need our first product as an organization will be ice cream, high noon ice cream, and it'll come on the inlay of the, when you open up the package, it'll just give you discussion topics to have.
There you go.
Great. So, okay, let's go back to high schoolers. So what do you remember from high school, and what do you think high schoolers are really going through that we don't understand? Because to be honest, like my eldest son is 12, so he's almost a teen. So he's in that bracket. We talk a lot, but I still see him like a little kid. And it's like, when he was just asking me a few days ago, because we got into it a little bit, he was giving me some attitudes, so we were talking about it, and he's like, what, you've never been a rebel in your life? And I was like, I don't think you understand. I was the worst kid ever. Like, I was the most rebellious. It was terrible. And then I was thinking, oh my God, my experience of teenagerdom was it like in the 90s, very different world. So is pre-cell phones for sure. We had the internet, but it's really crappy. So help me understand like your experience, and then also, I guess, segue from your experience into like what it means to be in high school for all the parents who are listening, who don't understand what their kids are going through. And then also for the kids, so you could speak to them and be like, you're not the only one, you know?
I think COVID has a huge, huge impact on how connection is done these days. A big reliance on just internet. I mean, we can connect with each other, right? Where are you now, Andrew?
Mongolia.
Glorious Mongolia. And I'm in Japan. And I'm working with kids in America. So the connection for these days can happen through so many different means. And creators, people who are making content on the internet are, giving as much information as, whether it's good information or bad information, it's information that's getting put out there. And what we see is dictated by algorithms to try to suck you in. And I really see how much of an impact that's made on just how we interact with people and how high schoolers manage and interact with their friends. So that's I won't say hurdle, but a thing we need to understand about this day and age where the internet and like connectivity over like long distances, rather than jumping or asking your parents for a 20-minute ride to your friend's house and then asking them to pick you up, it's easier to just play online with your friends with video games, or just playing by yourself, entertainment by yourself on the internet. And
would you say that the skill, the art, and the science of communication is like a lost art form, or is this generation, are they becoming less socialized by opportunity? Help me understand that. Like, why are people, because it doesn't seem like it's resulting in them being happier. Like, this is the most anxious, depressed generation that we know of, right? So it's not by design, but like, how is it that high schoolers are lonelier and more disconnected than previous generations?
I think it's the quality of connection. Yeah, I mean, the best experiences of connection. Okay, I wouldn't say like my high school experience was, oh, I was just amazing, like, but, the best nights that I had were me going to my friend's house and we would just, we would stay up till 4 a.m. talking, we would, right? Or like, being at camps, I think was a huge shaping experience for me to connect with, my brothers and my sisters, my brothers especially, to connect and to understand like each other. Yeah. And it's something that you have to kind of build up to and break some ice. It's a lot harder to do that. It takes a lot more time to do that over face like a Zoom call or I think the quality.
So are there less opportunities to connect for this generation? Like, is it because they're not getting the support in creating these opportunities? Like there's less stuff for them to do, or it's just there's more stuff to do online that draws them in as a distraction?
Yeah, maybe like distraction. I think it's more I think about it, it's very polarized. Like there's opportunities that people utilize to connect with other people, and they really take advantage, those guys. And then there's other people who kind of use that same technology to isolate themselves or to get stuck in rabbit holes of like, I don't know, red pill or masculinity or like, that kind of idea about like being Sigma, being like the lone wolf, the quiet, like, this guy.
Yeah, sure. And so your experience in high school, especially growing up in our faith, right? So this idea that there's some sort of standard that you know of, you're aware of. The depth of that standard is debatable, like how much people understand it, right? Like we have Ilshim, and these days it barely skims the surface on talking about sex. Like they've kind of removed a lot of that on the national, at least in America. Not so much education about sex, but you're aware of some standard that the blessing's important. You're not supposed to date is kind of in the lexicon of our understanding of the world, right? But then a lot of kids are not given incentive or a clear vision of why it's worth sacrificing all the fun that you think that your friends are having. So like, how is it that you survived high school yourself and you find yourself in a blessing, like you chose the blessing over all the many other options, like you yourself, and then we'll unpack other people.
Okay. Yeah, it was a huge journey. I mean, in high school, I knew that I wanted the blessing. As I said, my siblings are a lot older than I was, and they all chose to go to the route of the blessing. Regardless of how connected they were to the community, they all felt like they wanted the blessing, and they all got it. And naturally, I felt like interested in the blessing. And a lot of it was, I would say, my parents, kind of their education. I didn't really understand. I didn't really feel like, yeah, this is the blessing. I know exactly what it means for me as a blessed child to get the blessing. I didn't think that at all. I was just like, oh, I don't want to disappoint my parents. I don't want to make them sad by dating. And I think that was the kind of level that I was at. Like I was afraid of
How common was that amongst your friends? Like just this idea that your driving motivator was not disappointing God or your parents or something like that, like guilt.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Most of your friends?
Most of my friends, if not all. Yeah. I mean, there was a brothers' night at a Camp Coho, before it was Kogape, Camp Coho, there's a brothers' night and we talked way more openly about sex than we ever had before. Like, some brothers and sisters gave their testimony and we talked about just explicitly, not explicitly, but we talked about, has anyone used porn, has anyone masturbated? And it's like, a few people spoke up about it. And then, one of the brothers who were really close to me, after the camp, he opened up to me about his addiction. And even after that brothers' night where, we talked about it, like it's still that conversation between him and I opened his eyes, like he's not alone. Like I'm not alone,
Well, so let me understand this, because you're saying that in the beginning that one driver was seeing your siblings getting blessed, right? So that's somewhat of a vision, but so you have something to emulate, but your own understanding of the blessing was more driven by just not wanting to disappoint your parents. So there was some vision, because I'm just trying to understand. There's a lot of people that are swimming. I mean, everybody's swimming upstream if you want to go the route of purity, right? But does anybody have a vision? That's one thing that we want to address with High Noon High School, right? Which is like helping them to decide that this is who I want to be because it's the better option, but helping them make it their own understanding of a better option by thinking about it and by debating and by understanding, right? So, yeah, like what percentage was driven by, like you saw your elder siblings and they had something that you wanted and is worth sacrificing for this ultimate goal?
I mean, in high school, it was mainly driven by fear. I don't want to disappoint my parents. Like that feeling, it was driven by that. I didn't start having an actual vision for the blessing until I had a better understanding of it from understanding our faith through GPA and my experiences there and through the programs with High Noon and just opening the conversation around the blessing more.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's a lot to ask. That's one thing of why we want to focus on high schoolers is because, young adults, 22-ish is probably the average age of somebody who joins an Ascend group, and it's because they want the blessing and there's something blocking them from the blessing, and it's porn. So they're like, I want this thing out of the way so I can go to the blessing. That's always been our primary demographic of like who comprises Ascend. But for high schoolers, when we're like, but don't you want the blessing? They're like, I don't know, do I? And it's not that they don't, it's just that it's a reality that's so far away that it's hard to incentivize them. It's like getting a 21-year-old to invest in a retirement savings account. They're like, I just want to pay rent right now, right? Like it kind of makes sense. So then how do you allow them to formulate a vision that's more native to like where they're at, is the question. Because, okay, as a high school, this is what I'd love to transition from. Your experience was like, is more guilt driven. So then what's an alternative to that for high schoolers of this day and age, rather than us being like, do you know that if you have sex, you could die, your head could fall off, or like the fear tactics of the olden days when they give you all these stats of STDs and all this. This is purely fear driven, right? Is there anything that's love driven that you could kind of offer in terms of incentive for high schoolers?
The first thing I think about is the four great realms of heart, and that experience of developing our own heart to be able to love more and to accept deeper and greater love. We jump towards the blessing and stray away from the things. It's like all these Japanese moms are like, oh, I have someone in mind for you. It's pretty overwhelming and off-putting, even for people who are actually getting ready for the blessing. But especially for high schoolers, right? Like, yeah, I mean, if someone talked about getting ready for the blessing when I was in high school, I guess, but hold on, wait, let me at least graduate first. I'm not ready. I have a crush maybe, but the blessing, like, whoa, that's too much commitment. Yeah. But, it's too much commitment because the heart isn't developed yet. I'm thinking about, like, as a blessed man right now, like, what could have prepared me better to be the best husband? Like, what prepared me as much as I am now, and what could have prepared me better? I'm thinking back, and I really see how much my relationship with my mom is reflected in my relationship with my wife, how much I respect my mom and listen. I will tell you that my dad and I had a really bad habit that during our like evening hundoke, we would have like a quick sharing of our day. I would share, my dad would share, and then my mom would start to share. And then both my dad and I would be like, all right, here we go. Because my mom would share for so long, or like it would kind of go off on different tangents. And so my dad would always like, all right, here we go. It's like getting ready. And actually, I recently talked to my mom and she remembers that. And actually it hurt her when we did that. It didn't make her feel good. Like they're just gonna like sit there. And then I'm just gonna be talking to two walls that are here. And that conversation that I had with my mom, it impacted me, and it made me realize like I have to be a really good listener for my mom, but I can't let that happen with my wife. I don't want that to happen with my wife. And as a son, like that, it's a huge reflection and development. Like as a son, that development reflected into my blessing, and especially as an older brother too. Like how I wanted to strive to be an older brother. I always want to grow and become better. I want to learn. I want to be humble. I don't want to be arrogant. And those feelings I can see are naturally a part of my blessing. When I see something that I've done wrong, like if I hurt my wife, I'm very quick to understand, to recognize what I did. and understand, and to listen how it impacted her. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I like that.
Yeah, that's my choice.
I like that. Well, so this idea, I mean, too, of there's a few things like the analogy of gold versus plastic. Why is one worth so much more than the other? Because they're both going to be around for a long time. We don't know how long plastic is going to be around for. They say potentially thousands of years. Hopefully we come up with technology that can mitigate that. But the idea is one comes from God. One is like, gold, it has been around and it will be around forever, so long as there's a planet. It's made up of the same kind of ingredients that the rest of the cosmos is made out of. So it's like got this eternal quality. Whereas plastic is man-made and it's just cheap and you throw it away. And that's like dating. So this idea that like, just look at your friends too. As a high schooler, love. So Sancha used to give talks with us. She went on a tour with us. I don't know if anybody knows her, but she would say this one deep line that love without a container wreaks havoc. So if you don't have a container for love, it'll just go around destroying everything in its path. And you can just look at that. Like if you just have the emotions, but you are not a good container, meaning like you don't know how to handle it, you're going to hurt people. It's the same with, I took my son driving for his 12th birthday because we went deep into the countryside just so that he could know that, because all he wants to do is drive. Just like, this thing is cool, but you can definitely kill people if you don't know how to drive it properly, right? So similarly, like love, most people, it's the most powerful force in the universe and people use it very casually. So like in high school, just run the experiment. Don't be emotional, be scientific. Watch your friends who are deeply in love in whatever, October, ask them how they're doing in March, right? And then just see what that same person, the value that same person that they were dating has in their life. And chances are very high that they're going to hate that person and it's going to be a very negative aspect of their life rather than like the focus of their life. And when you do this enough times, it hijacks all of your motivation, right? But so your idea of like becoming you didn't say this, but becoming capable of handling love by learning the skills of learning how to listen to your parents, learning how to be a reliable member of a community and a family, right? These are all traits that help you to become qualified to handle love when the time is right. Because anything before that, it's just going to hurt you and everybody else, that's involved in that love. Do you think that would resonate? Do you think that you can, because it's like whenever you leave your house and your mom says, be careful, and you're like, Mom, that means nothing. Mom, I get it, but I'm still going to risk my life because I'm a boy and I don't have a prefrontal cortex. Like, I can't think. Do you think that's incentive enough to give them the cautionary advice that, like, you're not ready for high schoolers?
While you were talking, you unlocked a memory of mine about, like, the kind of a blessing and the beliefs I had in high school where, I saw my friends who were dating or just, people like the popular kids who were like dating, and man, I don't know if I believe the drama that happened in high school with sex and dating. And it was just so like traumatic almost, like not just for me, but for the people who went through that, I won't get too much into it, but basically like it was traumatic. And to understand that how important it is to, understand we're not, it needs to develop, our hearts need to develop. So can you repeat the question?
Yeah, it's just the cautionary tale isn't always that effective. So if you're to tell a high schooler that this is going to hurt them in the future, it still might not be enough incentive to quell the feelings. Like, I want to go in this direction. And you're like, but if you go in this direction, you might get hurt. And they're like, yeah, but I want to go. Is there anything, is that strong enough, this advice?
Yeah, I don't know. So I went through that experience, I went through that like observation of like, wow, these couples are so unhappy. Like they're just trying to take from each other. And then you see how hard they're crashing and burning in their romantic relationships. It's not romantic at all. It's really scary. And I was able to witness that cautionary tale like in front of me.
Sure.
But to simply say like, oh, like this is what's going to happen, but might not be enough. I don't know.
It's funny because a lot of the movies that are about cautionary tales, people don't remember the ending. They remember the joy. Like, a movie like Blow or something with Johnny Depp where he's a drug dealer and he's living this high life, and then eventually he goes to jail and his life falls apart. And the end, people don't remember that. They remember he looked so cool, you know, when he was doing this thing, and it was like all the. So I feel like as story, those cautionary tales don't have the same effect that people wish they would, which is like, don't be a drug dealer because it's bad. But like they don't remember that from Scarface or these other movies, that they just remember like the how cool their house was and stuff. But I mean, another approach would be like you talking about how much you're in love right now with your wife, and how much, as she laughs in the background, by the way, how much it was worth waiting for, right? Like that's more of the realm of like positive incentive, is like, I wouldn't have this if I went any other way, right? Can you speak to that at all?
Yeah.
Because you are, I mean, if there's anybody that I know in my life right now who's the most excited about being married, it's you, I would say. So like, tell me about like, is it really worth waiting for? And if so, like help high schoolers understand like why it's worth waiting for the ultimate love, instead of like this piecemeal love, that like this glimpses of like hungry people begging for food. That's what dating is to me. It's like people with their hands up being, can you love me for a little bit? And then you move on to the next person. Can you know, like a little dog asking for snacks here and there, scraps.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we, like, especially at High Noon, we talk about like the purity is a garden, right? And I can, like, looking back, you know, this is hindsight 2020. Hindsight is 2020. That, like, if I had dated in high school, there'd be so much more baggage. There'd be so many more weeds to pull. And that isn't to say, like, I don't have, you know, I can't have a perfect garden, or I can't have a beautiful garden to offer. But there'd be so much more to do to be able to offer my wife the pure love that she deserves. So as like a cautionary tale, I mean, if I went through that experience of dating in high school, being cheated on by my friends, okay, that's like, you know, what I witnessed. You know, if I went through that, I'd have so much distrust and trauma and negativity towards just being honest. My life would be so full of lies that I would have to recover from that, so that I can offer my wife the trust that she needs. So as for like a cautionary tale, you know, like showing the example, there was a testimony that I heard. There's a mom, it's older first gen mom, who was like struggling, like, how do I teach my kids principle? How do I get them to come back to church? Because all her kids aren't connected at all. And the person she was talking to was one of the Chungpyeong staff, and he was visiting our community. And so his guideline, or his recommendation, was just be a more loving couple with your husband. Are you lovey-dovey in front? Like, are you showing how beautiful the blessing is to your kids? Or are you barely talking to your husband? And unfortunately, it was the latter. And then she changed that. She started kissing her husband more in front of her kids, being happy to see her husband when he came back from work. And then she noticed that her kids becoming more receptive, more happy to see the parents, and more receptive to, like, is this what the blessing's supposed to be? You know, they're asking more and more about like what the blessing means, and you know, like what are they doing differently now? You know, and it's like such a beautiful testament to see like the love that you find in a couple can really, it overflows and it connects and it deepens and it strengthens everything around it if it's true. It's
such actually really great advice, because that's basic math, right? It's like, where does all this lead? Okay, you're asking me to live like this, but for what? Because of some blessing, and then you guys don't like your blessing, so then I'm gonna have that? That's just basic, like 1 + 1 + 1. So yeah, like I would also say that, you know, there's probably a bunch of high schoolers that could be listening to this that maybe their parents aren't so inspiring. I definitely know some. I mentor some. And so, you know, this is an important thing too to understand, is that I think a lot of people had very different understandings and beliefs about the blessing in the early days. And it's more iterative than it is like a panacea. Before, it's like, okay, just go to the blessing, your lineage gets sorted out, world peace, done deal. Instead of like, okay, this is going to take a few generations to get right. Or, you know, it's going to get better and better over time. But because of that, people had like an all or nothing mentality. And then as a high schooler observing this, if your family situation is difficult, you can learn from that and make yours better. But you do need good examples. So myself, my parents got divorced And my sister and I both just learned from our parents. And we're both happily married. Accidentally, I don't know, like coincidence, we both have 3 kids as well, which is like we were just 2 siblings. And so we like not only believed in marriage and found a spouse that we really love, but we upped the ante by having like an extra kid, right? Which shows like substantial faith on some level. But like you do need good examples. So like to look for healthy families and to be around them and to know that it's possible. Feed your image and your vision, but also to understand that just because your parents were one way, it doesn't mean that that's your destiny. And that's what the blessing is at all. It can be whatever you want it to be, but you have to live very intentionally and work towards it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Did you have any good examples, like your siblings, but also anybody else that kind of sold the blessing to you? Was there somebody that was like, maybe they don't even know it, but they were super inspirational to you to want to go head to the blessing?
Yeah, I would actually say my parents. In high school, I did not realize that at the time. I did not even think of that at the time. Yeah, just to make that clear, I guess. But yeah, I really struggled with my dad in high school. And then there's a turning point that happened later in high school, especially like with my connection with my dad. And like speaking about like generational trauma or like, things that like they can break, is that, my dad, he had a very challenging childhood with his father and his grandfather with his dad. So like generationally, they were beat tremendously. My grandfather, there was a specific belt that was used when he was beaten, that whenever he saw it, he would avoid eye contact with that belt because it was hanging in his basement. I don't know why they didn't get rid of it, but anyway, it was just, my dad talked about that. And then my dad also talked about how my grandfather beat him. And then, yeah, my dad didn't want a family. He wanted romance. He wanted a marriage, but he didn't want kids. He didn't want to continue that kind of like legacy. And then the blessing came, and he got married to my mom. And what was, I give him credit for him, the most extraordinary thing is that he never hit us. Yeah. So there was one instance that, I wasn't born yet, but my dad talked about this. My mom talks about this too. But he, as a way to punish my oldest brother, he misbehaved. My dad spanked him. I don't know what kind of spanking it was, but my dad and my mom, they both like remember that, and they think like, my dad made the very clear statement, I'm never doing that again. Like, he never wanted to lay his hands on his children like he did. And I have so much respect for my dad because of that. Like, yeah, he's the ultimate man because he completely changed. So anyway, I love my dad. I have so much respect for him. And yeah, I didn't know it at the time, but like my parents loved each other tremendously. Like my dad really tried to love my mom, and my mom is still continuously trying to love my dad. And my dad's in spirit world now, but like my mom really loves my dad, and she keeps saying it. Well, to this day.
That's beautiful. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Thank you for going there. Because that's like the idea of making the world better one generation at a time is a very big, broad idea. But that's a very perfect example of a man who's resisting all of the momentum of the past that's been handed down through generations to stop a behavior so that he can leave something better in his children. And now you're the beneficiary of that. Your dad's legacy lives in how you show up for your wife and how you're going to show up for your kids. And that's all possible thanks to this idea of the blessing and the purpose of it, right? And your dad's success. And so, yeah. So for high schoolers to hear this, you guys have to understand how tempting a lot of these online gurus are. Like my mind always goes to Andrew Tate because he's such a renowned figure in our world. He's so controversial. He is the worst possible example for a father and a husband ever. Like he's a piece of trash in that respect. And so you look at some of their advice and some of it's kind of tempting, but you look at the example. Especially, what would that look like at scale if he passed that down to his kids and et cetera, et cetera. And it doesn't work. And that's why in high school to work on yourself, to be a reliable son and brother, right? Or if you're a woman, to be a reliable daughter and sister to other people, and to really understand what that means, that becomes the practice for you to leave your imprint on the next generation based on your foundation that you're creating. And so for Seiji to have his own rough patch with his dad, but then to eventually understand who his dad is and to value that is now the imprint that his dad laid in him and what he can clearly lay in generations to come. And that's gangster. Like, that's like, I'm going to change history. Watch me do it. And like, that motivates me like crazy too, because I have a lot of bad habits that I've inherited, from my direct parents, but also from my ancestors that live within me. And it's been like, some days I felt like I was dying because I'm going against so much momentum. Like, every part of me wants to do something that I know I shouldn't do, and I have to resist. So guess what that is for a high schooler? That's porn, right? You are changing history when you resist porn. You're changing history when you resist the urges of the flesh and you choose something better. You're creating a superior lineage for the generation, but just in general, you can walk proud knowing that you are shaping history for the better, right? And it's not easy, and it's not linear either, right? Like, I'm sure there's many dark days. We have many mentors, many mentees that are like perpetually struggling. For some people it takes years, but it's worth every ounce of effort because you're on this trajectory towards creating a high noon life and legacy for your family. And Chanuguk.
Absolutely. And in Islam, like, the act of resisting like temptation and like negative habits is worship, right? It's like, that's the act of like, like, I believe in the way, and just like the act of resisting, like, that's the level you're at, that's worship, that's beauty, so I learned that the other day, and I thought like, yeah, completely, I agree.
It's beautiful. Yeah, so your form of worship, we'd probably say that's a form of substantial worship, right? Substantial faith. So Seiji, like, walk us through some of the visions that you're getting, because we're working on some stuff behind the scenes, right? Some High Noon High School, HNHS. What is your vision, and welcome people into what the world could look like for high schoolers in the High Noon world? Yeah.
So just a little bit ago, we pushed a survey for high schoolers to learn more about what would be interesting for them. What would be interesting for you guys, for the high schoolers, and what would be something exciting for parents to kind of nudge their kids, or I don't know, maybe their youth pastors, or something that we can give. And my oh my, so we got amazing submissions. Thank you to everybody who did it, to everyone who tried, and to the people who pushed it out. So for the ideas, I'm still like brainstorming, and honestly, I feel like I'm working 24/7. All I'm thinking about is like, would this be a good idea? Would this, what kind of content can we make? And some of the ideas. So I'm thinking like communities. I don't know. We can build it anywhere. Like Instagram, we can like have followers and daily challenges or something. But I'm really thinking like weekly or daily, or some kind of like challenge, or some kind of like a short duration of like a push of growth, like something that I want to practice that can help me become a better older sibling, or a better younger sibling, or a better son or daughter. Something that can, and it can be like something simple. Some of the ideas are something that you can do around the house, like do a chore without being prompted to, like something as simple as that. Or make $10 at the end of this week, just $10 outside of your parents' income, out of the own effort that you can, like, contribute something, and like kind of push some kind of ball. Those are some of the ideas that I have, but I think like I definitely noticed through the surveys there's different like levels and tiers, and what I wanted to introduce is like a program, and then just like content, and so it's different ways that different stages of high school that you can plug it, like that they can plug into, whether if it's just like short form content that High Noon can make, more than just like a podcast clips, which are great. And I want to make maybe something a little bit more, maybe like directly for the high schoolers. And then the short sprints, the programs that we can do with the challenges. So those are some of the ideas that I have. Nothing is concrete yet, but I'm excited. I'm on fire.
Yeah, it'll be good. I think the elements there are, for our normal Ascend groups for young adults, what we've established so far is like 3 months programs of you get mentorship, you get a facilitator, and you get a group to meet up weekly for like the course of 90 days, right? But this doesn't seem to really suit the daily schedule of like a high schooler. So we're looking at, what do sprints look like? If every month there's a challenge that was led by Seiji, and then there's supporting content, then how could you level up your abilities as a high schooler to function healthily? But more importantly, like, what are the rules that you want to play by? Because as a high schooler, you don't have full autonomy. You live at your parents' house. You still, in many ways, have your parents' faith. But at some point, you're meant to develop your own faith and become your own person, your own young man, young woman. But before having a vision, people have the desire to reject what their parents are, which is not a good plan, because it's not a plan at all. It's just a reaction. It's like, oh, I don't want to go to church because it's my parents' church, whatever. Instead of be like, well, what do you want your faith to be? What do you want it to give you? And to define that and to become that little by little, challenge by challenge. What kind of spouse do you want to be? What kind of brother, sister do you want to be? All this is a part of accumulating an intentional vision and lifestyle based on who you want to be, which is the High Noon Way, rather than reacting to the world and just kind of being a default version of yourself that never yields good results, right?
Yeah.
So we can definitely create a fun thing, and Seiji's going to be the captain of that ship. But we need for sure your feedback. So along the way, by golly gosh, if you're parents and you have questions, please let us know. And if you're a high schooler and you have suggestions, please let us know. If you're a parent who has suggestions, maybe not so much, because you probably maybe I don't know, maybe. But yeah. If you really know high schoolers really well, then okay. A lot of times from parents, what we get is, "Can you fix my kid?" And we say that's not a thing that we do. We don't fix anybody. We help them heal themselves and develop a life that they want, for sure. But
we give them the tools.
Yeah, we give them the tools. So please, especially high schoolers, be the guinea pigs here. It doesn't mean that we're going to try some crazy experiments on you. It means that we're going to find the best way that we know how to set you up to win the game that you choose to play, but we will get better at that over time. So if you want to be the first, it means that you're early adopters, and it means that you're pioneers and that you're ready for change. We can help you. And then you can then be the veterans in subsequent iterations.
I do.
So Seiji, what do you want parents to know? Is there anything you want them to know, or is there anything you really want high schoolers to know?
Yeah. So early iterations, and it's something that I'm still working on and still brainstorming. But in the survey, I asked if anyone's interested. At the end of the survey, I've asked if you're interested in seeing the development. Put your email in, right? So I'm thinking for those people, and for anyone else who listens to this podcast and would like, right, that interest in development, who has that interest of development, excuse me. Yeah, I'm thinking of maybe publishing a really, really, really simple newsletter for those emails, and some kind of community that can kind of help, right? Maybe volunteers who can help garnish this product that we're making to make it more beautiful, more attractive and exciting. And yeah, so
sweet.
Let us know, okay? Yeah, like we have, I've heard Andrew ask for comments and like feedback through multiple different episodes of the podcast, and I'm sure barely anything comes in, but put comments in those Instagram posts, comments in the Spotify. You can do that. It's something that actually tremendously helps anything, right? And it gets your foot in the door of like working on something with High Noon, and it's fun. It's exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay in touch, everybody. We want to create the best possible product, or like, it's not a product because we're not selling it, but the best environment for growth to happen online that is possible for humans to make at this point in history. But we can't do that without your feedback, your telling us what you want, and if we're giving that to you. So it's kind of the best situation possible. If you can imagine, there's a team of people here that are saying, hey, if you're in high school, we got you, but we need to know exactly what kind of help you want. We'll give you that. All the support you need, but you have to let us know what you want, and then we'll co-create the rest with you. So it's interesting because it's the same thing, not calling us God by any stretch, but it's the same thing with Heavenly Parent, is like constantly waiting for you to identify who it is that you want to be and to put in the effort, and then that's your 5%. And then God's got the rest, spirit world, rest of it done with you, together with you. But we never put in the effort to figure out who we want to be and what we want to do. We just kind of like hold out our hands and be like, could I be happy, without even understanding what happiness means, right? So if you want healing and if you want to have the high noon life as a high schooler, we got you, but you also have to get you too. So let us know. Reach out to Seiji. What's your email?
Seiji at highnoon.org. That's it. SEIJI at highnoon.org.
Beautiful. Simple.
Yep.
All right, man. Yeah, thank you for stopping by. You'll be back on again soon, I'm sure. And stay tuned for progress. Right now, should people be following on Instagram? If they're not on Instagram, where else can they follow this development of High Noon High School?
Yeah. If you're not on Instagram, we'll be posting on YouTube. If you're not on either of those, I don't think High Noon has a TikTok, does it?
Yeah, we do. But if people are off of social media, then newsletter. Just stick to our newsletter for now.
So we have email, newsletter. So yeah, I mean, we're so easy to get in touch. It's amazing. If we were any bigger of an organization, it'd be trouble. So take advantage of it while you can.
Yeah, cool, man. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you around.
God bless you.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite, and one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.